Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Tricks. Bryce, Jason, how y'all doing today?
I'm a whole lot less tired than when we recorded yesterday.
Okay,
So
great. Yeah, we've been hard at work making content for you guys, so you're welcome. And
Yep.
mostly it's because of Ethan. God damn it. He keeps putting out samplers. So,
forcing us to grind in the studio.
yeah.
Yeah.
But all right, so topic for today, it's gonna be a fun one, I think. We're gonna be talking about what tricks to abolish, what tricks or concepts we should get rid of. And so this is more of a less formal trick theory one. We didn't really like sit down and plan out the whole thing. We actually wanted to just like bring up arguments to ourselves. So we have a list, but we haven't talked about it. So that's kind of how this episode is going to work. So, yeah. Um, I guess I could start out, but my first trick that I want to abolish absolutely off the face of this earth is boneless. Fuck that trick. It's such a bad. I don't know. Just like, why would you name a trick when you could already just say vanish cork? Like, it's the same shit. I don't understand. So,
So to be clear here, you're not asking that people stop vanishing into corks, or
it's
even I
also
think
ugly, but sure.
I was gonna say
I'm just,
there are some
just.
people. I'm pretty sure some people would also contend that, and I don't necessarily know of the merit of this because I got to be honest, it's been a long time since I thought about it.
Mhm.
Some people would say that boneless is not only vanish, but a particular type of vanish. I think it has something to do with your leg not passing your other leg. I don't even remember, to
I
be
could
honest.
see that.
But some people out there might know a little bit more on the specifics of this, but it might be because it's not necessarily just a particular vanish quirk. I would ultimately argue that like if you happen to land in such a way that you still vanished, but it had that particular leg arrangement that some sages off there know makes a boneless.
Hmm.
It's still a vanished cork, and however you happen to land your previous trick is probably what's setting you up for that more so than like
Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't really need its own name boneless. You can still get the exact same amount of information by just saying vanished cork, as long as you knew how the previous trick that you landed actually landed.
yeah. And like the other thing with exactly what you said, I know exactly how you can do a trick like that. Like I've seen people 540 vanish cork in a way where their leg does pass. And I mean, to me, those are just the same trick in my head. Those are just vanish cork. But I think the other complicating factor is I have a feeling that the people that call vanish cork boneless would also call reversal cork boneless in the sense that it would look very similar. If you landed on your left first and then your right and then you took off your right and then your left, it in a like pure tricking, like if you just look at it aesthetically, it looks very similar. And so that just adds more complications. Now boneless isn't just vanish cork, it's every time you do a certain step into your cork and you take
It's
off a
every time
certain
you
way.
do a sequential takeoff into cork that isn't swing.
Exactly. So I don't know.
Yeah. And that's definitely problematic when reversal is its own unique transition different from vanish.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that actually did happen when we were at Rose City. I'm not sure. When I was grinding out some reversal tricks, I'm pretty sure we were asked if we were doing like boneless, and it was like,
Mm.
nope, that's just reversal.
It's
It
not
does
boneless.
look it does look similar to pop and boneless, so to
Mm.
speak. But yeah, I mean distinct foot patterns make it different. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this does hit on another thing I want to abolish later, so I won't talk about it too much, but it does have to do with transitions and how we name tricks. But yeah, boneless, I even think that the name really hasn't stuck too much. I think there's like definitely a subset of trickers that still use boneless, but I don't see it used very often. So, I don't know. Oh, also, some people use boneless for cart vanish A twist. I don't know if you guys knew
Yeah, those people are that's wrong.
yeah.
that. Yeah.
I actually and I'm wondering who's saying that because like one, I'm not seeing anyone really do cart vanishing twist, and
Mhm.
then two, like how? Like
There,
I mean,
yeah.
in some ways, like I know how reversal core can look and act kind of like a twist
Hmm.
when done from like if you do like full reversal cork, it can kind of my experience kind of come out like an A-twist, but at the same time, like, they should be distinctly different.
Yeah, I remember this was talked a lot about when Guthrie released his sampler, where he was doing the Vanish A-twist, and I think he did a Vanish triple at some point. And I remember people commenting like, "Oh, I think that's boneless," and so, but I think that's why we also haven't seen a lot of discourse on that. But people should still do cart Vanish A-twist. It's a very interesting trick. It's just, I don't know, not
I
boneless.
suppose this discussion is not necessarily aided by the fact that none of us can even remember what specifically it means beyond the fact that it has that vanish component. But yeah, if anybody happens to remember what the additional component beyond that you are vanishing into cork makes it a bonus, it makes it a boneless, excuse me. That would be great. Please yell at us in the comments. We look forward to your yelling.
Yeah. But honestly, that's kind of all I have for my ranting about boneless. Unless you guys want to add anything. So
expected more hate.
Yeah, I mean it's just like because it's not used so much. I feel like there isn't too much to fight about. So
yeah, it didn't exactly blow up on the scene.
So, all right, Bryce, what's your take?
Yeah, broken is stupid. Oof. We should all stop doing it. And okay, that's very inflammatory. But let me go ahead and explain myself a little bit more deeply. So there are a couple of different times throughout a couple of different sports where we've taken moves that are just necessarily counterindicated by physiology, and we've just gotten rid of them. And the purpose isn't because we don't think that some people are capable of them. But because by incorporating them into our sport, what we're doing is encouraging young people to sacrifice their bodies to go out and do that thing, as opposed to a whole bunch of other tricks, which we know are a whole lot less counterindicated and still just as cool. The examples that I have that come to mind are, you even have brought this up before, Frank, 1.5 out. Roll out
Cursed.
Of a 1.5.
Cursed. Yeah, there's a reason that was banned from gymnastics competitions. It's actually a deadly fucking trick.
Absolutely. You can absolutely kill yourself. And I don't even need to explain how you can kill yourself on it. Everybody knows exactly how you would kill yourself doing that trick. But there's actually an example as well from weightlifting. It used to be that overhead press was way more frequently used in powerlifting, I believe, as a measure of strength is instead of bench press. But over time, bench press caught on more and overhead press was replaced because one of the things that was happening is that people were starting to lean back really fucking far in their overhead press so that they could use their stronger chest muscles in order to do the pressing bit. But this was leading to, if you can imagine exactly, Frank doing it right there. You can imagine doing an overhead press while leaning your back really far. You are compromising the integrity of your lower spine. You are putting an incredible amount of shear stress on it. And your spine does not respond well to like 300 pounds of shear stress.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's so much. Powerlifters.
Imagine that.
Powerlifters love to just like use as many accessory muscles as possible. I guess accessory muscles isn't the right word for it, but yeah, they're
going to use whatever way that they can get that weight up to get that weight up. And that's the thing. The problem isn't that some people out there can't do the exercise, right? You can still overhead press with good form if you know how to do it right. Just like you can theoretically do a 1.5 dive roll out, and you can theoretically do boneless. There are lots of people who have done them and have done them well enough with lots of repeatability. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying that it's probably stupid to have as one of those tricks that we encourage lots of people to do for the exact same reason that having overhead press in powerlifting competitions led to a bunch of people having compromised spine integrity. And because young people who are competitive athletes are just going to do whatever it takes to win. And if that means going for a trick that they're not necessarily ready for and winding up with like long-term consequences as a result, that's absolutely what they're going to do. Now, can we stop that in all respects? No, absolutely not. As long as those tricks exist, people are going to do them. But I would highly encourage people not to necessarily work on those just because they're counterindicated by your physiology. There are more ways for that to work out bad than good. And I know what I'm saying. I know that sounds crazy because we're doing tricking, and tricking is just like necessarily a painful sport. It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're constantly doing things that your body was really not meant to be doing. But we can accept reasonable risks even in a sport as risky as tricking,
Yeah.
just like they do in powerlifting.
Well,
And
so I already hear people in the comments kind of screaming and being like, "Wow, you're trying to limit tricks, Bryce? What the fuck?" And so I just want to clarify some points that I think there's some differences in how things can be limited. So like I think about Simone Biles and some of her tricks that she does and how they are banned. And part of the reason those are banned are because they're just like too difficult and like literally no one else can do them. And like yes, there's an aspect of danger, but she's not fucking flipping onto her head. So I think that's like a fucked up like this is dumb that it's banned. Why would you fucking? It's like us banning like
yes.
Quint Cork like once
And
it's landed. You know what
we
I mean?
also don't actually have the power to ban. What we're like ultimately all I'm really saying with this is I suggest people early on in their tricking careers who have a whole lot of time and opportunity and potential in order to get better. I suggest you work on tricks that are less likely to over time have a negative impact on your body than otherwise. Just because like yeah, it's cool to be able to do that a couple of times. It's
Yeah.
way cooler to be able to do that all throughout your young adult life up until like, your 40s and 50s and still not have any problems. Trust
Yeah.
me. Way
So,
cooler.
and then the other question I have for you, Bryce, is what exactly about broken makes it dangerous?
Oh yeah, and this is actually I can even be more highly specific because I don't necessarily think the idea of bringing your hand down before you land in a like front side position is necessarily wrong. Like there's lots of ways you can do front handspring or things with front handspring out, which isn't necessarily counterindicated. And
Mm-hmm.
there's probably lots of different things that you could do for broken that aren't counterindicated either. I just see lots of people who do broken from like tricks that are up, done up at head height, and they reach and just touch the ground right before they land.
Oh my
And
god.
exactly, it's like it qualifies as the variation,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but all that has to happen is you miss your foot. And you have just done the one thing that all sports medicines people will recommend you don't do when you fall.
You foosh.
Exactly. You
Fall in an
you really
outstretched hand.
exactly. It's like you fucking do not do that. Every person who knows anything about medical science and sports science, uh, who is watching one of those is probably thinking the exact same thing. Ooh, that's going to be a really really bad elbow injury
Yeah.
because it only has to happen once.
Yeah, if falling on an outstretched hand is the mechanism of injury for actually like a million different things. Like, yes, elbow injuries, but also like shoulder dislocations and other things like that and fractures. So, yeah.
And when I'm doing a touchdown rise and it's going wrong, first of all, it's
Hmm.
very, very rare that a touchdown rise is going wrong. But if I'm ever doing a touchdown rise and it's going wrong,
Yeah.
I can just like literally pick my hand up. I can just pull it away and then land on my knees. And my knees are a whole lot stronger than my
Hmm.
wrist and my elbow are.
Yeah. Also,
I don't have
how high are you getting on your TDR?
very not high.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my head as close to the ground as I possibly can manage it
Hmm.
for exactly this reason as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So as you can see, the audience, we all have different reasons for abolishing these tricks. By the way, I had a very trick theory reason. Bryce has a very medical reason. And this leads me to my next point, Jason. I think you also dislike broken, but I think it's for a very different reason than Bryce. So
Yep, that's true. I was gonna say that, and we actually just put out the hands episode kind of talking about this, but I think broken kind of just I like the idea of broken if you can do it safely, of course. I mean, to be honest, I don't really care so much about the health and longevity of triggers. Go to I advocate going out and destroying your body, not literally, but
yes.
uh, obviously like in a reasonable, safe way. I think you should explore everything that tricking has to offer, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. And you'll see that I have some things that I think are definitely not worth exploring in tricking. But that does just because I have those opinions doesn't make those opinions right.
Yeah.
Um, so but broken, I think I mostly just dislike it for like the name. I think that like as we described in the other episodes, it's just basically a right-handed touchdown, but
Hmm.
in like a frontside landing stance. Doesn't have to necessarily and we could nickname it broken, and that's I guess like fine, but kind
Hmm.
of understanding what it actually is, like what's actually happening,
Hmm.
and rather than just like assuming. Um, because if you think about it, by opening up broken beyond just being like a right-handed frontside landing, there's like three specific landing stances you could use. You could land in ultra, mega, or in like uh, unified like mega or frontside, I guess. So,
Mhm.
um,
And we
you
only
know,
really land in
and in
semi.
like semi, yeah,
Yeah, semi.
typically. All right, so there's like a lot more that like focusing just on like one specific right-handed touchdown and front side
Yeah.
would like limit you when there's like a lot more that you could potentially do with it. So,
This is a trick theory pitfall that I see often, and people will name something and refer to something very hyper specific rather than making it more broad and making it a variation for every other thing, if that makes any sense.
right.
So,
And we can and like and broken is still like emergent, so this is like a really good opportunity.
mhm,
And I'm going to talk more about emergency
mhm.
as well. I don't know if that's like the right way to use that, but
I think
essentially
that's
like
I think emergency is actually the correct term, even though it also sounds like like an
right.
emergency. But yeah.
Yes. But yeah, like my next topic is about
Mhm.
is also an emergent trick theory thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
just that. Like I mean, if we start early and we like recognize it and catch it and like start formatting in a different way,
Yeah.
we can avoid the pitfalls that we've had thus far in tricking.
Yeah. So, what is your next trick?
Glad you asked, Frank. My next one is the emergent dub 10.
Oh my God.
And
Awful.
yeah,
Cursed.
and
Cursed.
so like as someone who has like a hobby programmer, I don't know why I like
He's a
suffered to say that.
programmer, everybody.
Um, like when you have like names collide, well, like pre-existing names in your program collide, like you're obviously going to get errors or unexpected results.
Mm-hmm.
And that's literally what's happening here with like Dub 10 is essentially that, these are two words that already exist in the sport being used to describe something kind of similar. Like there is technically a double flip happening,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, there's absolutely no 10 occurring. And 10 is usually meant to denote like a vertical,
A
you
kick.
know,
It's a
exactly.
kick and tricking. That's what it is. Like I don't know. It's
Right.
annoying.
So when you say dub 10, do you know what like I actually expect? And this
I know
goes
exactly what you expect. You expect a 7 and a 10.
exactly to a double kicking 10,
Yeah.
Like so
If
dub
we were
10
to
like actually exists already.
if we were to accept this terminology into tricking, we would already have a situation that's more cursed than the fact that double already is an entirely ambiguous prefix in tricking, which is something we're going to talk about in the future. But yeah, double
That's true.
already can mean multiple different things depending on context.
Mm-hmm.
And if we accepted this as well, then yeah, we might as well just burn the whole thing down and start over from the beginning again because that's just
Absolutely.
off.
Agreed, Bryce. I was actually going to lead to that point, but you definitely exposed it pretty early on. So exactly that. And that's another topic that, like Bryce mentioned, we will be discussing is like the
Yeah.
implications of certain language and tricking based on the context
Mm-hmm.
of the tricks that they're used around,
Yeah.
and understanding what that means in a better way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this is just a bad example of that.
Yeah. And then really quick, I do want to tell some of the audience maybe who doesn't know what Dub 10 is really quick about what it is. And I don't even know how to describe it well, but it kind of looks like I've seen a lot of people do it from cart and they'll like it'll be like a full in but not really. Like they're kind of sideways with it and it looks like they do almost a double side flip within it after doing like a 90 degree or 180 degree turn.
Almost a full and then side flip out.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
two step. It's like a cart full in side flip out where like you get to like short complete or
Yeah, yeah.
absolute semi and
So
then
that you can
basically side
still
flip out.
side flip in your dom. So you cannot complete the actual full rotation. It can't actually be a full inside out. Otherwise,
You wouldn't be
you'd be
sideways.
Well,
side flipping.
and actually like kind of hinting at another like upcoming episode we have is this is a front side flip,
Mm-hmm.
which is a
Yeah.
fundamental trick that will soon be discussing in the future. But yeah, interesting to
JT
note, it's not a
Dudley. Yep.
backside side flip that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a cart full in front side flip out
Front
to
side
be
side
like
flip.
hyper
Oh.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah, so and Dub 10 first came up in the Talking Tricks universe when we talked about Shosei's sampler because he did kind of like what some people might refer to as the Dub 10. And there was a lot of people in the comments talking about it, and pretty much everyone unanimously agreed, like, yeah, it's dumb as shit. So, but it comes from skiing terminology, and yeah, that's kind of, and I know that's been a thing. Like, tramp kids love to name their shit about after like skiing terms. So we've seen hints of that in the past, but like cork zeros and cork tens or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, but that's absolutely awful, and we condemn it in the most strident of terms.
Yes, absolutely. So we cannot accept this as their chicken terminology. Just ban it forever, please, Jesus Christ. So,
yeah, I've said it before, but for as little work as early tricking did in putting in the time to make sure that our language system for tricks makes sense, as little work as we did, skiers did like maybe like a quarter or an eighth of that work. So we really just don't get anything from them at all.
Well, and tricking typically has a history of appropriating tricks and renaming them anyway. Like, how many tricking tricks exist that we've, taken from capoeira but renamed, and we're not using the traditional capoeira names.
You call Gumby a Haiz, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So I will say one thing from before I started talking tricks, or before we started talking tricks. Jesus Christ, don't kick me out, please.
Always discounting my contributions.
I was like, dude, tricking has to have some of the worst terminology in any sport ever. But after exploring some of, skateboarding terminology, b-boying terminology, skiing terminology, I'm like, okay, tricks are not doing too bad for themselves, to be honest. Like, we're in crisis, but not nearly as much as these other sports, and they're not doing anything about it, I feel like.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, is that all you have to say about top 10?
Yep, just stop using it, basically.
Yeah, fuck that shit. All right, my next one is a little bit spicy because this is tied to a potential world's second, I think. But pop B twist. It's the first one that kind of comes to my head. I think it was Nick Fry. He was this the second ever triple B twist people were counting as
second triple B.
Yeah, and the defense for those who don't know the tricking history, Nick Fry did triple B twist kind of at a Neo, and there's a lot of argument about it in the Facebook page, and people started defending it by saying, "Oh, but it's a pop B twist. That's why it's still a triple B twist." I don't think pop B twist is a real thing. That's a full. That's literally what it is. So I'm sorry.
Because they have like fundamentally different takeoffs. B twist / A twist has a single leg takeoff, and to pop is to take off unified, and that's like the big issue that we run into. And because we don't call pop cork, pop fulls, the same thing, And
pop cork was a thing that caught on for a bit because, and it literally ties back to this. This is what pisses me off. It ties back to that whole conversation because people were so vehemently defending it that they had to come up with a whole new worldview about what tricks are and come up with fucking pop cork.
And can we get the clip out by any chance so that we can bust out the monocle and see what his takeoff position is? Because we can say that we can use that monocle to say that it's not a world second, but we would then have to turn around and say that it is a world first at triple whatever particular trick this happens to be, right?
Like a running triple full. And so
unless it is taking off exactly like a triple full would from like a cartwheel, in which case then it's exactly a triple full.
Well, and that's what we'll watch it really quick and try to determine that. But,
I just realized I put it in the wrong
distinction between the many different types of fulls found in tricking to be discussed more in the fundamental tricks episode.
Correct. Okay. Yes, because if it's depending on which unified trick theory model that you use or unified takeoff trick theory model you use, whether it's what was it, Frank? The two theory or the two trick theory or the four trick theory?
4 trick, yeah.
Yeah. Essentially, this will determine what type of full it is, but either way, if it's soft 2 feet, it's going to be a full.
Yeah. I found this triple B twist compilation, but I don't think... Oh, there it is. I found it. So, okay. So here's the thing. Before I watched this, if I remember, my take was this is not a triple B twist, but it's still very impressive. So... Let's see.
There's never meant to be any disrespect to any of the
Yeah.
triggers we're talking about.
Well, let's see. Maybe it is triple beats. Maybe he takes slightly off one side. Then no, that's pop. That's pop.
Yeah.
That's pop.
Yeah, and it looks pretty much like this. Like the only difference between the sort of full that you would see coming out of a cartwheel and this is that there like a conscious effort is kind of being made here to be horizontal, whereas when you're going out of cartwheel, you have some good old rainbow arms to throw yourself into a really good inverted flip. So this is very much like this is to the full that you do out of cartwheel what B twist is to A twist.
Yeah.
It's done out of
Agreed.
And I already don't think that there's a difference, in my opinion, between A twist and B twist. It's just the horizontal.
It literally is the level of inversion, but our model of tricks actually doesn't take that into account.
So in my opinion, he actually landed this trick for the first time here, and the one he did in Neo is the same thing. But regardless, very impressive to do a running setup into triple full. So
yes,
I think this one actually may be ever so slightly triple A twist though. If we go back,
if we monocle it up, let's see.
if we truly monocle it on, I think it is actually triple A twist. But I don't think it's triple A twist in as such a satisfying way. It's really hard to tell. You know, like because if you want like world's first triple A twist, you want it to like be distinct and unquestionable.
Well, I have to retract what I said about the world first thing, because technically this is literally just like the same sort of triple full that you would do out of a cartwheel, unless we are going as far as saying that if you do a full horizontal, you've done a new trick.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not willing to accept that, and so I don't know. Nick Fry, it was amazing, but I will say I'm very salty that whole thing started a discussion that created a whole new tricking worldview that was just not compatible in the slightest with trick theory. You know what I mean? So, and some people still like kind of hold on to that in terms of like, yeah, you could pop anything that you can swing, you could pop because you can interchange transitions when that's not the case. You can't interchange.
They're just slowly discovering the two trick model for themselves. One day, as soon as they like get rid of all the contradictions in what they're saying, they'll realize that they've just espoused the two trick model.
I think Bryce is a proponent of the one trick model, so
yes.
This actually might be a win for him. So, all right. So yeah, pop B twist, pop cork, dumb as fuck. Don't do that shit. Well, do that shit. Just don't call it pop cork. Call it full, because that's what it is. So that's my take on that. So yeah, Bryce.
Oh, no, I think I'm ready to go on to my next one. Unless you've got anything, Jason. Anything else you would like to say about pop B twist, pop cork?
Nope. I have nothing more that I'd like to add. I think we've said plenty.
Pop cork just again, Frank already alluded to my reductive tricking model, but pop cork just indicates that everybody already thinks that cork and full are the same trick, and I agree. You're right. Anyway.
Nice.
Okay, so yeah, my next controversial take is I think that we just need to get rid of rap, the entire music genre. I'm sorry. No, I mean like the actual.
That's like a second to register in my brain for some reason. I was like, what music?
I actually love rap and hip hop, but the term both. This is actually two things simultaneously. You guys are probably tired of hearing me talking about like medically counterindicated stuff, but rap is absolutely one of those fucking things. Just look at literally anybody's bass leg when they're doing a rap full. Fuck that. Go find like some early footage of like Bailey Payne or other people doing like rap trips, and just look at the amount of torque that their knee on their bass leg is under.
Okay,
and
Bailey Payne is not a good example to look at because he's a medical anomaly. This man will get thrown everywhere and nothing will happen to him.
Yeah, he can get hit by a car and still be fine. But the problem still stands that if you're like regularly applying that much force through your knee while twisting it that much, it's just really not good for you. But that's not really the main thing that I wanted to say rap needs to go for. That's just the obvious thing that I would say rap needs to go for.
I was gonna say, are all your things medically contraindicated? Because that's hilarious. Okay.
Yeah. No. What the reason why rap needs to go is because the terminology is completely redundant, and we've brought this up before, but it's trying to name tricks based off transitions instead of letting a bass trick be a bass trick and a transition describe how you actually got into and out of it. It muddies the waters, because then you can have people for a while. People would call tack full vanish rap full, which just more powerfully indicated the lack of need for the term wrap, because
Yeah.
if you can already say swing tactful or swing vanishful or vanish tactful, then you've got all of the same ability, but wrap is now not simultaneously standing in for two different transitions at the same time. So you have to ask yourself, all right, did he wrap into it or did he vanish into it?
Yeah.
Because he just said both.
If you ever find yourself saying two transitions in a row like that, just take a step back, just breathe for a second, and think about what you just said, and logically in your head, and then be like, how can I improve myself and become a better person?
If it still makes sense to you what you've done afterwards, maybe ask one of your friends next to you to hit you in the head really hard with something.
So yeah, and we've come up with a solution to the rap problem that might be slightly controversial, but basically just now what we do refer to as tack now, it would be vanish tack. Like you have to specify that it's a vanish tack because now every rap is a tack. Now if you do cart rap full, it's actually just cart swing tack. So I think that's a elegant solution, but I could see why it would be controversial. But
Yeah.
rap full is kind of dumb.
It does seem, as far as like the medical counterindication towards tack stuff, I do see in general it seems to be easier to pull off to take off from for a tack style trick from a vanish. There's always going to be some amount of rotation in this takeoff because of the way that you're swinging. Your leg really can't swing up that far behind you, so it has to swing around you to some extent whenever you're doing something tack style, and this is what's causing the torque on your base leg when you're doing your takeoff. And this is going to exist to some extent, no matter what, no matter how you're doing attack. But in a transition like vanish, where your step and your pushing on the ground is actually more emphasized than the swing is in like a traditional swing tactful that we used to call rapful. That seems to make it easier to do this takeoff without putting a tremendous amount of torque on your knee. Though even I say this as someone who absolutely loves doing vanish tactfuls. Yeah, it's always going to have you like turning your foot to some degree when you're doing it, even when you're trying your very hardest not to, and it's bad for you.
Yeah. I agree, and the other thing with swing tactful is that it literally feels like you're tripping yourself over, and I think that plays a part too in how dangerous it feels. But it literally does feel like that. Anyone who's done it probably understands. But you just trip yourself over, and it feels like your knees buckle, and it's not a good feeling. But it is a fun trick. I do like to do it into swings. I think it's very powerful. But yeah, I see the argument for medically kind of changing it up. That being said, I still Rapful is near and dear to my heart. So
I want to stress again with just like with broken. I don't actually think that it's entirely impossible to do these in a way that wouldn't be okay. I just haven't seen it that way. And there, maybe there's a future where we've gotten we've thought, trickers collectively have innovated on the technique enough to the point where we've come up with ways that can be comboed effectively while simultaneously are not necessarily as horrible for our body as they could be. But to some extent, I do think that we're limited by the physics here. Like there's only so much you can do to swing in that direction while twisting to your left from your right foot. So
yeah. Okay, cool.
So I largely agree with a lot of that. The one thing that I would definitely disagree with is that I think, and we'll talk more about it during our base tricks or fundamental tricks episode that we go over soon. But I do think that there is a way to do a croc style vanish swing, essentially. So like, and we'll, like I said, we'll talk about it, but there has to be a way to do it because sideways can't be the only option.
But
So
like
we'll talk
for
more about it.
attackful,
Yeah, it would essentially be like the equivalent of like a vanish croc quirk.
yeah.
Or
yeah,
I don't, that's actually redundant. A vanish
it's just vanish
croc
croc.
swing quirk. Right. Vanish croc. But that's
Yeah.
also because we don't have a really good name for that takeoff or
Yeah.
that base trick.
Again,
Again,
I'm
we'll go over a lot more
interested to
episode
hear
on.
because I feel like I might disagree with you, but we'll talk about that in a future episode. So
For sure.
all right, do you have another one, Jason?
Yep, I do. And this one is a little lukewarm, honestly, compared to some of the other takes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's another terminology thing, and it's when people use late N, and N is like a number. So when they're saying like late 9 or late 7 or late 10, essentially, um, these are meant to denote like specific amounts of in-air rotation, typically done with like an invert, and also then like landing in mega and kicking, late.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, the issue with this is that it becomes like super ambiguous and people oftentimes don't use it the right way, or like they'll say like late 9 for like a double cork late 9
Mm-hmm.
essentially, when really that would be like late 12, right? Because it's a double twist.
Right.
And it can become confusing when you're saying it to other people, and there's a really simple solution for it, and it's just say like late rounds and late hooks.
Yeah.
And this removes all ambiguity, and you don't have to worry about saying like, numbers and having that accurately, one, like you getting it right, but then also the person you're speaking to understanding and parsing it correctly.
Yeah.
Like, so
And in terms of the other person understanding, I think late round is a very quick, like, it just registers in my brain. Like, I don't even really need to think about it. Even if I've never heard it before, it's like, yeah, late round. It's like late 9, but like late round.
right.
More generic. So,
Right. And examples of late hook for people who aren't familiar are like crash moon and stuff. That's where you do like the hook and then over rotate again, hook again. So,
yeah.
and in some ways it's also similar to shuriken cutter, but
Mhm. It kind of looks troubled more because, so the whole point of late hook is you're landing in semi and hooking, but still hooking at your target, I believe. So that's the weird part. But, yeah, okay. Good take. I feel like not too many people will disagree with that, so that's good.
yeah, like I said, it's one of my more lukewarm takes, but
Well, we're saving the hot takes for the end, and that's why my next one's pretty spicy. So, I think you guys might have a problem with this one, but I want to just get rid of cheat. I think cheat is so dumb. We should stop saying cheat 9. We should stop saying cheat 10. It's just it's not a good thing. I don't like, what does it even refer to? Is it the setup? Is it the fact that you're vanishing? Is it the fact that you're wrapping? I don't know. I think we should just vanish tac 9. Like, that's what it is. Like, that's what cheat is. So, cheat's dumb.
Absolutely. It's bad terminology that's actually had some pretty interesting consequences on how kicking, specifically within tricking, has developed. How often do you guys see people do front side vanish kicks?
Oh. Yeah, like, do you
What
mean
would
over
be
rotating?
yeah. Well, what would generally be called a cheat, but from front side.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
will do it on accident, and people will call it over cheating,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll just be like, "Oh, that's a bad thing. Never do your cheat kicks like that,"
Yeah.
or they'll
Our
just never do it.
our
And
friend Jeremy does that. I'm just kidding. I only said that because I know Jeremy's gonna list this and he's gonna be really upset. But actually, your
but yeah,
hyper nines are beautiful.
there's this entire paradigm of kicks out there of doing vanish kicks from front side that
Mhm.
like is just entirely underdone because because cheat and nobody has a name for the other one. If
Mhm.
you call it a cheat thing, that everybody will say no, but it's supposed to be done from backside, so you're over cheating.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and this has led to literally everybody going like, "Oh, we can't do that. That's bad." When it's just another collection of tricks. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it would be bad if you were trying to do a vanish from backside vert kick and
Mhm.
you rotated all the way around to front side. It would be bad if you were trying to do that because you wouldn't have executed the trick you were going for. But
Mhm.
if you were genuinely trying to land in front side and then vanish, like we just saw in Ethan's sampler when we talked about it yesterday, we saw this
That's true.
exactly happen. It's like, yeah, it was dope as shit.
Mhm.
Uh, there's no problem with that, and it was really effective in the combo. So I don't know why I don't know why more people aren't doing it. Besides the fact that there just isn't a good name for it, and the name that we do have for the other collection of vanish vert kicks sort of suggests that when you do one of these ones, you're doing this second version wrong.
Yeah.
So
I think tricking does suffer from this effect where it's just we have a shitty naming system, and so there are tricks that aren't named, and therefore whenever you do those unnamed tricks, people are like, oh, but you didn't do this named trick, so you must not have done it right. When in reality, that's its own trick. So, and to be fair, there is something to be said about intentionality, and obviously most people are going for just the cheat kick, like the backside kick. So, when people do the over rotation, in a way they are failing to reach their intentionality. But if they just knew that this other trick existed, then they could be like, oh, I'm gonna intentionally do that, and it's gonna look sick because my body feels more comfortable doing the over cheating or the vanish front side kick. So,
But because they don't know it exists, they feel ashamed
yeah,
and like a failure for not having accomplished their intended desire
yeah, we're not trying
or
to
their
shame
desired outcome.
anyone. There's,
But
I
Bryce
mean,
is
we are trying
absolutely
to shame
right, and
people,
in the same way that the vanish from frontside exists, the vanish croc exists as well. So I'm gonna keep hammering that home, boys.
well, I was wondering what you thought about my abolishing cheat, Jason, because yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think
Oh
cheat
wow. Okay.
itself is not great. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it's vanish tack essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, or even sometimes skip. Like oftentimes, some people don't even necessarily vanish when they cheat. Like they skip.
That's a good
Um,
point. Yeah.
and on top of this, and I wanted to kind of like piggyback on this one because my last take was kind of lukewarm. Is is reversal. Like I think
Yeah.
people, or I'm sorry, not reversal, reverse. People
Yeah.
saying like reverse rise, reverse snapoo, reverse
Oh.
720 twist. Like this is all like very bad. And you should probably just be saying skip because that's exactly what's happening. And I feel like Bryce's head's about to explode.
No. I was gonna say you're absolutely right. Like
Okay, good.
people use the word reverse, but now reverse is another one of those words in tricking that has a whole bunch of different meanings depending on context. So it just makes my head want to explode when people call something reverse something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like no, that's not, and that's not even exactly what's happening. It's like it's almost like a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
Like
It's just really bad terminology. This happens in math too, where we just name something because we think the word sounds good, and then
yeah,
people will later on be like, "Oh, that thing is that word because we named it that." It's like, no,
we
no, no.
we we gave it a brief, a brief nickname for a second, and
It's someone thought it
that's what
sounded
confuses them.
cool and it
That happened to
confused
D
a bunch
leg.
of
I'm sorry,
it
that
is
happened to D leg.
It
Like
is. It
it's
is
just
exactly. But
someone thought it sounded cool and it confused a lot of graduate students for hundreds of years for later. That's all that
literally yes, and then someone had to come out and make a podcast explaining why it's wrong, and
oh
it's
my
like,
happened.
god. That's amazing.
yep.
Yeah,
But that's literally
so
what's happening with reverse and cheat as well.
yeah,
Cheat is just like, and cheat's gonna be honestly like a harder one to swallow because it's like so ingrained in tricking.
it is.
But you're absolutely right. It's just Vanish Tech.
It
So
is at the core of
Vanish
tricking.
Tech 9.
I think people will definitely disagree in the comments. But I mean, the other part of this is like cheat 720 twist. Like, what does that refer to? Because like, there's to me like I saw the connection back when I first started tricking about how cheat 720 twist and like cheat nines are related. But now knowing more about tricks, I'm like, no, those are very different. Like, there's actually nothing.
Take off from entirely different directions. One is backside, one is frontside.
Yeah. The only similar thing is the vanish type of movement, but even then you don't have to vanish. So it's like I don't know. It's like it's newbie brain. We came up with these terms when we had newbie brain, and now we know more, and we should stop doing that. So
Well, and it there's something to be said about going back and refining like our existing knowledge based on what we know now, right? Like,
mhm.
and I find like oftentimes trickers are afraid to let go of some aspects of tricking terminology and stuff like it, and it is hard. Like, as someone who's been tricking for so long, it's hard to like rename and start using different terms for stuff that you've used the same terms for like,
Mhm.
5, 6 years, 7 years, longer even. Um,
Yeah,
so like I kind of get that, but at the same time, like I said, there's something to be said about going back and cleaning up your prior work.
mhm. I
So
agree. So yeah, that's my spiel about cheat. That's really all I have to say. So
Is this the appropriate time to allude to your idea, Frank, on how to name vert kicks in a way that's symmetric with our invert takeoff positions
yeah,
as a alternative?
I think that actually has a lot to do with my other discussion about pop cork and pop beatus as well, because we sometimes name things off of the transitions, and that's just that we shouldn't be doing that. Like, yeah, and so like what Bryce is alluding to, we do have an episode about it about TKT versus true intuitive trick science, and me and Bryce did independently come up with a formulation of how to name kicks that I think works really elegantly. And Bryce recently reaffirmed it because he, like I said, he independently came up with it. So I think it has a lot of merit. So
Frank got to watch me derive his model in front of him in a conversation between the two of us the other day. So
it was beautiful. I yeah, I lost my shit. So, so we'll probably do another refresher episode on that. Maybe like really focusing and honing in on that because the other episode we did spend a lot of time shitting on TKT. So, yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can
Which
talk. We can talk a little bit more about it, and maybe come up with a more appropriate name for it
no.
as well.
Oh no! True Intuitive Trick Science. It's the best. Okay,
It's really good, but perhaps a revisit of that wouldn't hurt.
maybe.
Maybe it can have a, maybe it can have a
If we
spin.
want it to be taken seriously, at least a little bit more seriously.
It's all jokes here and talking.
It
tricks.
is. It is intended to be lighthearted, but
We're America's
it's
most disappointing podcast, so.
Sure.
Got a reputation to protect.
Yeah, exactly.
uphold at least, not
All right.
protect.
And speaking of disappointments, I'm coming for Master everything, the entire Master tree.
That one's a hot take, I will say.
Yeah, I just heard a collective gasp. A whole lot of people clenched suddenly all at once. So
Well, hold on, Bryce. Let me just interject here. Are we really truly surprised? This man just eradicated rap a moment ago, and now he's coming for the exact same, single leg takeoff, just with the other side swing.
And just so you know, this means that if you just derive that, he's also getting rid of Muggle Slayer and Lotus. Like, just by definition.
I was also about to say, like, Bryce, I hope that you were about to also say that these other two base tricks also can't exist, right?
By
Like,
extension, they can.
right, like, logical.
Chad, yes.
Excellent.
That's half of every single leg trick, just so you guys know. He's getting rid of all of them.
It's the Wojak with, like, the scraggly beard, like, shouting, like, and then Bryce is like, yes. That's perfect.
Right. So yeah, tell us about the fucking.
Okay. So, and this is unfortunate because I've kind of made this. I'm going to make a different argument than medical necessity because I've sort of brought that up for the last three ones. But you could do this with literally every single one of these sideways takeoffs. They're all putting sideways pressure on your knee, and that's bad. And this, by the way, this hurts my heart too because I absolutely love master takeoffs. I GMS all day. But theoretically, there is a way around this that isn't a massive compromise that actually has potentially some benefits. And that's really what I want to talk about, is the strength benefits towards doing the sort of croc scoot / croc back handspring. And we need to come up with better names on this. This is going to be a subject of discussion in the fundamental trick episode because we don't have a really good name for this thing. Croc scoot
okay, I understand. Yeah.
Exactly. Croc scoot is a terrible name for it because it suggests that you're doing a fucking croc and then somehow a scoot afterwards. But really what I literally mean is your croc swing. So back swing, but from your traditional non-base leg. Mm-hmm. So right leg for left twisters and left leg for right twisters. Mm. And this is, you may even have seen some people do their master scoots this way, but it's a different trick because you're doing it from a different setup, a different takeoff position. Mm. But it has the benefit of leaving a bunch of similar tricks to master scoot, things that land in hyper, which is generally where people swing their master scoot from. Mm-hmm. But moreover, it's got, because of the position you're landing in, hyper, and taking off from, also that hyper, you get to bend your knee in line with your direction of momentum. Mm-hmm. So you actually have a way more force potential on this trick than you ever technically did for master scoot.
That's a good point. So you mean short hyper, by the way, right? Short hyper
yes.
Versus absolute hyper.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's landing in what would be complete, but only on your right leg for those at home trying to keep up.
Exactly. So yeah, I actually see the argument for the force potential. And I think we actually do kind of see that to an extent. I feel like there are trickers I've seen that do the croc type gainer scoot, and they get a shit ton of power from it. But yeah, definitely a spicy take. I'm not a scooter, so I don't give a shit. So
Bryce is like, he can't hurt me. I can't read.
I really care about GMSs, so this is actually something that I've had to come to terms with. But really, it would be a whole lot better if we did the croc takeoff version of GMSs.
Okay, so this is a medical argument. Sorry.
No, it's not just a medical argument. Like, it would be easy. It wouldn't just be better for your knees. It would be that, but we would be seeing a whole lot cooler shit too.
Okay.
I think what
because
we
it's
what
strong.
we have a problem with it. First of all, I completely agree. I think fundamentally, croc swing type tricks need more love and need more recognition. So hard agree there. But also another thing is that we don't really have a nice short complete landing besides like hyper round off, so to speak.
Mhm.
So like I feel like that's one of the bigger challenges. And Muggle Slayer has the same issue. A lot of the like those symmetrical mirror like type tricks of like standard base tricks that are typically very easy to do have this issue where they don't have like a very appropriate setup. Like
Yeah.
front swing rise is like super intuitive because it's kind of already there and your momentum is like going in that direction. But things like front swing A twist are really challenging because there's not really a good way to get your right leg in front
Yeah.
of you to swing it
Getting
behind you.
into that takeoff position is difficult as fuck.
Right. And so as a result, the same exact issue exists for Croc and it exists for Muggle Slayer and it exists for Lotus as well. And
I'm
only
putting
until
my money where
recently.
my mouth is and
Mhm.
actually adjusting my master technique. I train on both sides now because I'm trying to be ambidextrous. I still suck on every side, so that hasn't changed. But I'm working on making my masters instead of going from absolute hyper, starting from short hyper. And I'm having success training them out of cartwheel because that's always got you coming out in that position.
Okay.
Yeah, I often find that sometimes my cart offish cartwheels that I like land on one leg will come into that like short hyper landing stance, and that's a decent way to get started for sure.
Yeah. I think this is justification for me thinking that ambidextrous tricks are the future of tricking because you're right, Jason, that you don't have a lot of good setups to land right leg and swing in the croc. But what if you did dark side TDR and then you swung into light side croc? I think that's a very beautiful way. And by extension, the one I just thought of that I think is so fucking cool would be dark side aerial front swing A twist, like regular side A twist. That looks so sick. Someone please do that.
I will give that a shot
Please
for
do.
you. I can
So
do both, so now I can actually try that.
Yeah.
that would be cool. And agreed, actually, Frank. Like I, as much as I dislike, ambidextrous trick combos, I will concede that we find that the easiest way to access these symmetrical mirror tricks or croc type tricks is usually by using a dark side setup.
Yeah.
And it literally is exemplified by Malik doing Muggle Slayer from Dark Side Cartwheel for the first time. So
Exactly.
yeah, I can't deny it exists, and I can't deny logic and facts, no matter how I feel. So,
Facts don't care about your feelings, Jason. I'm
Ben
sorry.
Shapiro
that's true.
tricking.
and
Wow.
I will say I think you don't dislike Darkseid. I think you just dislike Dan Perez.
Absolutely, yeah. Guilty as charged.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say about Master, Bryce?
Yeah, we're ending the master race. You all have to go home now.
Dude, Tao's gonna be so upset. Holy shit. So yeah, we've just abolished half of every single leg trick. So now let's keep abolishing shit.
That's actually true. We literally just wiped off like literally half.
Bryce was like,
Why is
rap.
everyone
Okay.
taking credit for my shit? I just wiped off all those tricks. Y'all just sat there and watched me.
Oh no, I'm about to wipe off A twist and rise. So we're
excuse
done.
me.
No. Okay, Jason, what's your next
All
hot
right.
take?
All right. So mine is another terminal. Mine are mostly terminology things. People using terminology in weird, wacky ways really grinds my gears. And a big one. I'm gonna start with like the less spicy one, and then move on to the one that we will get tangential and also, just go off on a just ramble forever about it. But
Oh no.
the first one will be like when people do a full snapoo double, or when they say that, and what's really meant is like full snapoo twist, right? Like just because like the issue, and this again comes to like the issue that we'll be talking about soon, is like the implication of language in the context of various trickings, like, or I'm sorry, in the context of various tricks or transitions or variations, so to speak, instead of transitions.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, essentially just this. It's like a language issue, and how we use double in this context just makes no sense. Like a full snapoo double what, right? Like if you mean double twist, that's not actually like what's happening because snapoo indicates its own twist as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like
quad
a
full.
full, that would be a quad full, a single full swipe, triple twist out.
Yep.
And that's just not even close to what's happening.
And that's even the naming convention. We say fulls. Wait, fuck! I just drew a blank. Double full snapoo for a triple full. So, yeah, snapoo always implies that double twist, and that's how you. It has precedent, is what I'm trying to say. So.
Right, and so to use it in this way is to like go against, and like I'm totally cool with the terminology evolving over time, but only if it really makes sense. And in this instance, I don't think this only just helps to like confuse and like make things ambiguous as to what's actually happening in language rather than accurately describing tricks.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
especially since, at least in regards to that trick, snapoo twist and its related variations, we already have terminology that suffices for describing it. That does make sense. So,
right.
Like, using bad terminology there's no excuse. For some of the other ones we're about to talk about, it's a little bit easier to excuse because no good terminology exists. But you know what exists right now, we can at least say why it's bad.
Yeah. Are you talking about like snapoo, like the straight up snapoo and then snapoo twist, or like what do you mean?
Well, so I guess not necessarily, but I was alluding to double sideswipe.
Yeah, I felt like this is a safe one to start with too, because we're gonna get into double snapoo after double sideswipe, and the implications of this. And again, we'll definitely cover the implications of language based on the context of tricks or variations in a future episode, a little bit more in depth. But functionally, like double sideswipe, when people say that, I think what they're typically talking about is like the nicknamed trick shadow swipe, or and I'll give it like the clinical name is like side swipe, late swipe, or side swipe, late swipe. So
I'd accept late swipe. I think we should start using late swipe more.
I wait. So late swipe is the same as late round hyper?
Yes.
Correct.
What? Okay, so that's interesting.
Well,
swipe
about
implies inversion, but late tricks are all vert kicks.
Perhaps when I say swipe, I'm more so saying like you've kicked like 540 is a swipe type kick, even though it does. I agree that swipe will technically imply that you have inverted. However,
maybe it should just be late 540.
Or
perhaps,
hear me out.
But that would literally go against my prior argument, where I was saying.
Oh yeah, you were talking about that. Well, then maybe 540 just needs its own nickname that doesn't have anything to do with the numbers.
Katana.
Okay.
Stop.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. This is TKT.
That was from Dan Perez.
Yep, but that
was one good thing Dan Perez did, actually.
I was gonna say that doesn't mean that it doesn't have value.
Yeah.
And actually, to be honest, Katana does kind of clean that up. So like sideswipe Katana would make sense for the late
we
nine
could come
swipe.
up with a better name than maybe Katana's the coolest name we could come up for 540. But maybe there's.
Listen, I'm all about embracing trickers being weebs. Okay, we should try to make tricking terminology as campy as possible.
I don't think
you won't find a more strongly registered weeb outside of my area code than me. All right, but here's the thing: I still don't think that it's a good name for a 540.
I'm the only one keeping talking tricks on ground, like the only one keeping talking tricks. Yeah, grounded and unweaved. But essentially, I don't think Katana's the worst because we have precedent for weebish names in tricking. I think we should probably come up with like a smaller type of weapon, because like shurikens, right? Those are pretty small, and those exactly, right? Like so we like a little tinier,
like fucking
There we go, perfect. There we go, excellent kunai. So it is
honestly, I do like that better just because it goes along with shuriken.
Agreed.
Like, literally, shuriken and kunai.
That's a good point.
Those things match up to each other, whereas like shuriken and katana, these are implements used by two entirely different groups of people.
So tell us in the comments if you want kunai.
Or is it kunai katana, or are we all just crazy? Come up with something better in the comments below.
Seriously, it doesn't have to be a Japanese word either. It can be just a cool sounding word.
I think it should be 999.
Anyway, so okay, so so another thing though with this is like I'm going to maintain that if you are doing a round kick and you land then in hyper, you've most likely done a swipe. And it typically does connotate inversion, but in this instance, it's just easiest to describe this as like a late swipe.
That's going to sort of come down on my argument, because what I would say is the reason why this thing isn't a double swipe, a double side swipe, is because the second thing isn't a swipe. And the reason why the second thing isn't a swipe is because it is a vert kick. This is an invert kick in, vert kick out. Or rather an invert in and a kick out, because we don't call inverted things with kicks in them kicks anymore. But
So and I definitely like agree with that. There's not, I feel like in tricking we so far don't have a good way to like differentiate those two things. And so I can kind of see why you would say late swipe is bad.
I think I might have a solution. Maybe I don't have a solution, but this is just what popped in my head. What if a swipe is just if you do the swipe movement at any point in an inverted trick? It doesn't matter if the actual thing is not inverted, but if it happened during an inverted trick, it is now a swipe.
well, but now I've got two different. I can already describe shadow swipe as side swipe, late round hyper, or late, whatever we end up calling a 540. I can already describe it as that, and then I could describe it as double side swipe alternatively, but then I would actually have no name to describe actual double side swipe, the one where you do two flips and two swipes through it.
Okay, fair.
Right, because that's what I was gonna get at is like double side swipe in my mind would be more like a more true double
Fucking
flip-ish.
impossible. Yeah,
Right, like something
it'd be fucking
ridiculous.
impossible is what it would be. I can't imagine someone actually pulling it off on floor. But you know what? I've seen some crazy shit. So it's possible, maybe, but it would require you actually starting from front side like a rise, going through the entire side swipe motion. Then you'd have to turn your ass around because you'd have to get back to what would be the front side position from backside in the air, and then go through an entire other side swipe again, which would require you flipping over again. So this would be a double flip. And that's like an actual double side swipe. If double literally it means what double means, and then we are modifying side swipe with it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and there's another example of this being an issue too, is like the double aerial, or like I don't know if it was nicknamed frappe or what, but essentially the show say like these gainer late swipes is essentially what's happening, or Bryce may not like the terminology late swipe, but I'm just using it as a placeholder for now. Yeah. Essentially, though, these late swipe tricks that are occurring, and people are like, oh, but it's like pseudo flip out, and it kind of is a little bit, but it can more easily be described with this, as like just basically late swipe or late round hypers, because that's truly what's happening, right? And that is a more accurate description than coming up with convoluted pseudo flip terminology for it when it's not necessarily needed.
Flip occurring, so our terminology shouldn't suggest it.
Correct. Yeah.
I think we need to plan out our episode about what double even means and the different, because that is an important discussion to have.
You're right. It's
Bryce and I have been on this. Frank is like, oh, now I'm starting to see the light.
No, I've always agreed. I just it is very important to talk about. So I don't know.
We have not only this, but like we have example with reverse and a couple other cheat. Excuse me. We've got a couple of words now that mean different things depending on context.
So. The human brain is so good at making context happen, though, because like I'm thinking about how a computer might think about this, and they'd be so confused. But like us, we very easily register like, oh, double full means you're twisting twice and flipping once. Oh, double backflip means you're doing two backflips. Like, you know what I mean? We are very good at doing double 9 means that you're doing two kicks, but you're not flipping over. Like, you know what I mean?
Humans are natural language processors. We come with us ready loaded with software that's designed to help us understand and form languages. If you take kids and they're just like, for whatever reason, they're deserted on an island together before adults are allowed to teach them language, they will come up with their own language.
Yeah.
They don't need to have degrees in linguistics to do it. They'll just do it anyway because the human brain is made to do it.
That's crazy. But yeah, I think to demystify this further, we need to have that talk. But I do agree with you, Jason, that snapoo seems to be like at the center of this offense, though. Like it's become a very confusing term, and it's
usually swipes. Yeah, it's swipes,
yeah.
And it's also snapoo. And Bryce does bring a good point. It is original terminology.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, and snapoo isn't even actually original terminology. Actual original terminology is snapoo swipe, the most cursed thing ever. Snapoo is a great name. Snapoo is totally okay. Snapoo swipe needs to go.
Yeah, that doesn't, and it has gone away, I think. But even like Tiki, for example, I remember me and him had a whole discussion like 3 years ago about this because he posted like I want to say a full snapoo twist, and he kept calling it full snapoo double, and we had a whole back and forth about why he's wrong.
That's just wrong. Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, it would be more accurate to say full swipe double and leave the implication that there's a double twist at the
Yes.
end.
I'm cool with full swipe double. You can call it that.
Well, it's like,
but because
at
that
least that's just a
actually
little
describes what's
ambiguous.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no,
Right.
it's just a little ambiguous because what does double mean here? But yeah, at least it's not wrong.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it would be, accurate as an accurate description of what's happening rather than snapoo having historically meant, swipe twist.
Yeah.
Then
So,
double what? So even further ambiguous. I can't even talk.
ambiguity. Yeah.
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 Even further, I don't know what that shit mean.
Yeah. Please stop.
Okay, so Jason, this was your less spicy one.
No. Double snapoo is now the most spicy because not only does this have Bryce's potential issue of like the double inversion, but it also like what is meant by double snapoo? Are you talking like, swipe twist,
Mm-hmm.
and then,
Double
right.
Yeah.
So like these things are just really bad. We should probably come up with a more concise name, a more concise name for like that type of these double variations or these double compound variations where we're talking like swipe gyro is a compound variation in the name snapoo. And so we have like two double compound variations occurring and they kind of like mean separate things, but when we like, like we have with the language issue of like what it means to double, so to speak.
What we need is like a system like the metric system, where as we just add on to these compound variations, they just have a nice and easy way to like go up to the next one. So like you have snapoo, which is swipe gyro, and then you have snapoo gyro, which is the thing that comes next, and that has a name, and then you have that thing gyro, and you don't have to do this forever because there's only so many of these that people are going to be able to land on the floor. But that way you'd be able to take that and immediately apply it to other variations that do the exact same thing theoretically.
Yeah.
And that could actually be decent because we think about it, we kind of do that with like landing stances in a way. Like we have like our one landing stance that we've like explored in 4 different ways, and then we can just easily like essentially just extend these base tricks in the same way by using like a metric style system where it's like, semi-twist, but not like literally semi-twist, but just for example, like, or, millitwist and like upward and
exactly. Kill a snapoo, mega snapoo. Well, mega or milla snapoo, excuse me. We would have to use the ones, we couldn't use the ones from actual SI, or wait, no, not from the ones from computer storage, because that has stuff like mega already in it. But we could use we could use the literal SI where it's like killa, milli, all those things. Giga and so on, because those aren't actually used.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm surprised Giga hasn't been taken in tricking somehow.
But Giga is honestly a decent alternative for Ultra or a replacement for Semi, in my opinion.
I just think of Giga Chad.
I think it's decent, but so but that essentially just the issue with double, and like I said, we have an episode planned on this or to talk more about this. But yeah, there's just tons of issues with using the word double and like what it means when you use it and its placement within tricks, and like because that could change wildly as we've seen.
Yeah.
So
something interesting I also just realized is how helpful colloquial tricks are for trick theory. Colloquial names, because when you think about it, snapoo is actually a colloquial name because it refers to swipe gyro or swipe twist. So, but like we never say swipe twist or swipe gyro. That's like excessive.
It's good and compartmental. It's a good compression algorithm. Excuse me. It takes something that would otherwise take a long time to say and compresses it down to something that's more manageable, and everybody understands its meaning, so it's not a problem. And we can give something a full clinical breakdown where we would call something like swipe gyro, but then ideally we would have a whole bunch of shorthand names for all of the individual like compound variations and so on and so forth, so that we have a good compressed way to say it that still it still conforms to the general grammar and syntax of our tricking language, but now it's just replaced terms with more compressed, collapsed terms, as opposed to every single word inside of them that makes them up.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and as tricking has become more complex with its variations and thus
Mhm.
forth, it's required that need to compress to more concisely explain what tricks are and
Yeah.
communicate them over like, verbal language rather than like and written communication as well.
Yeah.
No one wants to type out a paragraph for a combo.
I will also say I think snapoo is the best word for that trick. I can't describe how, but like if you say snapoo, like I picture a snapoo. Like that is what a snapoo is. Like I feel
Yeah,
like
You just got some
Steve
strong
Tirada.
associations.
yeah.
Steve Tirada say a lot. You can say a lot of good things about him, but one of the good things you can say about Steve Tirada is he was really good at picking names,
Yeah.
minus the swipe bit.
Yeah.
We'll forget that he appended swipe to Snapoo swipe, and we'll just say that he was really good at picking Snapoo.
I just didn't think that ever happened, so that's not real. It's a conspiracy. Um
So we were supposed to come up with three things, but Frank cheated and came up with four, as
I
Frank does.
I did, but I also kind of hit on it. So my fourth one was using transitions to describe tricks, but I kind of did hit on it with pop cork and pop B twist because it's a kind of in a similar vein. But really, what I meant with that was more so for kicks. Like I don't like it when people are like, this is miss leg three or this is pop three. Well, pop three is weird because it's a frontside trick, but swing nine, for example, like those.
No, pop three is an issue. Pop three is 100% an issue. It has
You're
to
right.
be. It should. We
It
should
should
be
be front
saying
side.
pop or punch, front side or backside. So it
Exactly.
should be like pop or punch, front side three,
Yeah.
pop or punch, backside three, whatever. No one really does backside three. Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, and
But
you're absolutely right because you could punch into a pop, which doesn't make sense.
correct. Yeah, absolutely. Just yeah. So front side is a clean fix for that issue, especially if we go by the two trick model as well, which we'll talk more about in the fundamental tricks. I love that we're just teasing a whole bunch of upcoming trick theory content we've got lined up.
That's what
That's
this was, a
perfect.
promotion episode.
Oh, I totally forgot to mention when I was talking about abolishing the master race that that I kind of made this mistake in an upcoming episode where I'm about to tell you all why some of your touchdown rises aren't actually the tricks that you think they are. So
It'll
be
be
excited.
released before this is released, so.
Okay, yeah, okay, never mind. So then I won't have to give any warning about it. But yeah, for those of you who saw that and saw me call the Croc Scoot Master Scoot a whole bunch of times in that episode, I had yet to have the discussion
Mm-hmm.
on the fact that those two things were different yet. And I already kind of knew that they were different, but I also knew that that's generally what people called it. So I called it a Master Scoot there.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, it is different because it's the one that's taking off from the Croc setup from short hyper. So
But if you agree that you can vanish Master Scoot, then you would also then have to agree that you could vanish Croc Scoot, which would then imply that you could vanish Croc anything, Croc Twist, which Frank was saying didn't think was possible, but now is nodding his head. Because it's true. It's just true. You can do it. I'm just maintaining that argument that I made
yeah,
like 30 minutes ago.
Also,
Vanish
boneless
Croc is
croc. Why has no one done boneless croc? Like I don't know. I mean, abolish boneless, but
Because
you know what I mean.
Croc gets no love, honestly.
Yeah, I think that would look so sick though, vanishing into it. Like
Yeah,
you land left, right, you take off left, right. Yeah,
but you kind of like kick it out a little bit more,
yeah,
and you go straight back rather than around.
after all the thinking lately that we've done on fundamental tricks and stuff, Croc is definitely one of the tricks that I'm trying to add in as one of my new basics that I'm trying to work towards.
yeah. It
Want it
should
to be
start
some-
becoming everyone's basics. It's a
Absolutely.
fundamental trick. So, yeah,
And just neglected, highly neglected.
yeah. But yeah, that's my issue with Miss Leg, and Miss Leg specifically has been popping off lately because Ethan Turner named his trick Miss Leg 9 or Miss Leg 3, and I just don't think that's a fitting name. I think it was like the one that he did that he called Miss Leg is actually Muggle Slayer 3 or Muggle Slayer 9. I don't know.
Right.
But,
And part of the problem with that too is just like a just a lack of not knowing a whole lot about Muggle Slayer or like its place in tricking, and not like to Ethan's discredit or anything, just in general. Like no one really talks about it. It's a new emergent trick as well that we're
Yeah.
kind of trying to push within the fundamentals of tricking.
yeah.
And so, it's to be expected, those kinds of like things. But it's good to also point out when they are different tricks because these unique tricks that aren't getting as much recognition deserve the recognition
Mm.
that, they are actually deserved when they're being done.
And part of that is it's kind of like a chicken and the egg situation. Like, is that due to the fact that we don't have names for them, or is the fact that we don't have good names for them due to the fact that hardly anyone ever does them? Uh, there's no reason why it can't necessarily kind of be like a vicious cycle of both. So, you know,
Correct.
you can't come in and suddenly force everybody to start learning croc, but you can come in and come up with words for all of the tricks in that skill tree that people don't normally think about. And so, you know, as far as what parts of the problem we can actually manage to contribute to easily with our resources, the course is clear. We know what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, Jason, did you say you had another one or no? I forget.
Yeah, I
Okay.
did. I did actually have a secret one. This is
Okay.
a personal bias one, has nothing to do with trick theory. A little bit of trick theory.
Yeah.
But you know, your guys's were kind of personal, so I'll go ahead and also a little more radical than mine. So my secret last radical one is to completely eliminate groundwork from tricking. I don't think we need it. I think it's ugly. I think it's bad. I think it's a waste of time.
You never seen a
Um,
clean ass coin drop?
I mean, like, there is very 95% of groundwork needs to be eradicated. There's only a select few groundwork. I like front sweep. I like back sweep. Coin drops okay. Air flares a little bit, but I wouldn't really call that groundwork so much. It's just hand stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, like, really, I
Okay,
can't.
so where's the line between grounded inverts and groundwork?
So I'm okay with grounded inverts cartwheel. I mean, like I've got tons of love for ground. That's a grounded invert,
Yep.
as well as Gumby, and I think those are fine. When you are like essentially breakdancing on the floor, or you're shuffling your feet on the floor,
Yeah.
or doing.
Okay, so do not do a top rock.
I don't know
Jason
what
is
that
judging.
is. Yeah,
That's exactly the shuffling the feet on the
The
floor that you just
b-boy set up into
yeah.
the
yeah.
b-boy
There, but
tricks.
there's tons of stuff. There's tons more than just like that example. That's just like, and part of the problem with it for me is exactly what we were talking about before, Bryce. I think it wasn't even recorded. Was is tricks are in part intentionality and also like possibility for failure. And groundwork presents the least amount of possibility for failure, and like the intentionality is there, but there's
Yeah.
not like in the same way that the intentionality to do cheat 360 no twist exists
Mhm.
and is low difficulty, and we discard that as a trick, is my argument for discarding a lot of groundwork. I just
I,
Yeah.
I can absolutely agree with you there because from what I understand about b-boying, that sort of groundwork that is they call tricks all of the air flares and backflips and all that other stuff that isn't that, and that is the actual dancing bit. And it's generally, from what I can tell, it's used in breakdancing routines to make sure that your tricks line up with the rhythm of the music that you're dancing to, because it's really important in breakdancing for you to not just be able to do those tricks, but for them to actually line up with the beat of the song that you're doing it to. Otherwise, people are not going to be nearly as impressed.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and that's just not a big deal in tricking at all. You don't need to stall for time so that you land your shit on the beat, right? You start your combo on the drop, and that's about as good as you're going to get. So
No,
there is
sometimes I time it so that I land on the drop.
Yeah,
And
it can be
and when you
done,
hit
but
it, but no, you don't have
it
to
there
stall, really.
the
Like
issue is that
no one's gonna not clap for you because you have no rhythm in your tricking combo. That's
yeah,
just
the
not how
the amount
tricking.
of bonus points that you get for hitting on the drop,
mm,
it exists, but it's
it's a mental
also.
gain. It's not even like a
Absolutely
people.
marginal at best.
Yeah, it's really minimal. That's not the goal of tricking, is not to match the rhythm of the music that's playing.
Yeah.
Um, so and
Dancing is not tricking, and that is dancing. Dancing is cool. No knocking against dancing. Dancing is not tricking.
Yeah.
yeah, so and that's like just some of the things that I have. Another issue that I have is like when your feet are constantly being like shuffled on the floor, and not just in like a dancey type of way, but in like various groundwork type situations. It really flies into the issue of like where we have feet, the pattern of feet being the differentiating factor between tricks. And so it's like, well, how are you describing it when I'm just like lifting my feet up and off the ground, in a
Yeah.
semi-unique pattern, but in a way that doesn't actually incorporate any tricking into it or any existing tricks.
You're absolutely right. I hadn't even thought about that. But if we were to try to incorporate dance, the top rock dance from breakdancing into tricking as a trick, we would then have to classify it. Our system would have to be able to accept it. And
I'm not classifying that transition. I'm sorry.
Exactly. I have sparks flying out of my ears right now just considering it. So
I'm so glad that this is so well received. I know it's a little controversial, but like, just stop doing groundwork. And to be honest, no one's really doing a lot of groundwork. No one's
Jason's
really doing
that
much
dude
groundwork
who's just
anymore.
like, you have to trick the way I want you to trick.
Listen, these are my opinions. It doesn't mean they're right.
That kind of this entire episode, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Like Frank.
No, all my tricks still exist in a real way. I'm just saying, don't name it this.
Oh, right.
Y'all are the Nazis.
I hadn't considered that Frank was actually the only objective one out of the three of us. Jason and I were just sharing our opinions, but
no, I think cheesecake was a pretty opinion one, but that's just me. Actually, no, it does have some trick there. You know, you're right. I'm actually the right one here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Frank, you need to Chad yes this. You need to Chad yes this.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you mean, Frank? I mean, you just admitted that you didn't want to have to like taxonomize all the footwork nonsense that would occur in a breakdancing type.
I don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a trick theory argument though. So.
and that's my trick theory argument to reinforce my opinionated stance.
Sounds like that came second.
It did, absolutely. Yeah, it was. It was a total thing that I fabricated on the fly.
Now there's a Chad yes. Yeah, that was a Chad yes.
I mean, groundwork. I'm pretty fond of. I like. I don't know. I'm personally. I like it when people do some b-boy moves in their tricking, but that's just me. Oh my gosh! Like Alexander Anderson, he kind of popped off whenever he did b-boy stuff.
He does well, but that's different though. Like, because I would agree, Alexander Anderson. If I don't have a stroke trying to say his name, did incorporate b-boy tricks tastefully into his tricking combos. He didn't overdo it. It wasn't like, he didn't spend 2/3 of his combo on the floor rolling around.
Did he ever actually do top rock, or did he only ever just like do stuff like air flare and other?
Right, and he did it mid tricking combo, which made it like even more impressive. Like I'm not saying that's not
b-boys. Again, even b-boys will say that those are tricks. They won't describe those as dancing.
Interesting.
Or I guess technically they'll call them power moves. Okay,
so you are right. If someone starts windmilling for like 10 seconds or 20 seconds, they're gonna be like, all right, can we move on? Like,
exactly. They want, that's not very interesting to them. Whereas like if you were able to do like 10 consecutive windmills in the middle of a tricking combo and then combo out of it while preserving your momentum, that would be pretty I mean, frankly,
it would be long-winded, but it would be nuts.
Exactly, it would be long-winded. As soon as you're doing the same trick more than like 4 or 5 times, unless you're literally going for an endurance combo, like I'm trying to get the world record for swings, then it's a little more understandable. Like you are compromising the visual interest of your combo by doing that.
Well, I say no more than 3 turns personally, but go on. What do you say?
No, I agree. I have a hard 3 consecutive trick limit before it becomes stale. Isaiah knows, and he's like, "Wait, what do you mean? You don't like 4 gainer switches in the middle of like a quirk combo?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." I'm like, yeah, 3 is pushing it. I'm like, I would really much rather see something more diverse.
The Chad exception is you do as many quirks in a row as you want. That's my exception.
Well, yeah, you're doing an endurance swing combo then, right?
No, it's actually just a better combo. It's just more quirks.
Oh, you mean in any combo you can just append any number of swing quirks in the middle of
and just insert quirks into them.
Okay,
listen,
all right.
I'm a quirk swing guy. I gotta say.
Yeah, if you do like sideswipe vanish quirk times 4, that's pretty dope. I will concede. So.
I definitely think just like randomly putting quirks in the middle of parts of a combo where you would normally never expect it, like literally write out a combo and then just start trying to find.
Like place you get insert a
quirk in there. Yeah, I do think that has some merit to it potentially,
and it's possible.
Yeah, and it is very possible. But yeah, 4 quirks in a row. Why'd you even wake up that day? Really?
You just attacked my whole tricking style, Bryce. What the fuck?
Get in the ground, Frank.
Yeah.
Get now.
All right, I think that's all the hot takes, is it?
Yep, that's about all I had. My secret personal vendetta against Groundwork. I don't think I've ever expressed it on Talking Tricks, but
you've expressed it.
If you didn't,
you've expressed it like hints, like you've never gone in a full deep dive like you did today, where you explained.
I was never
hatred.
Explicit. Yeah,
but
you never revealed your power level before. The prejudice was just like seeping out slowly.
Yeah, it was hinted at. People could feel it, but Now they know for sure.
I think this
hate
is how
Groundwork.
Hitler slowly got into power. Like he wasn't just like
Oh my God.
expressly.
Please don't compare my
Yeah, with
disdain
the beer,
for
with the beer
Groundwork to
hall
Hitler.
push. See, we've got a good student of history here.
Yeah, exactly. Politics. It's all a game. Anyway.
This is
Okay.
how I slowly got rid of Groundwork.
Systematically.
Yes.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think that's the end of
Okay,
the
now
episode.
let's end this now.
All
Before we
right.
go any further, yeah, absolutely.
I'll catch you guys later. Bye.